This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, and welcome to my inner sanctum. This is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Well, over the last few weeks, we have slowly been getting into the month of Boo with some more lighthearted stuff. We're going to be getting into it now more in a serious way with a person who actually conducts seances on a regular basis on board the Queen Mary. It is a haunted ship that is docked in the harbor there in Long Beach, California. And if you ever get a chance to go and visit it, day or night, it's great. And if you get a chance to stay there, it's wonderful. This past year, I had the opportunity of getting to stay there for a few days when I went to the Magic Collectors Expo. It was hosted by Bill Smith and his staff, and it was a wonderful time. Well, although at the time I didn't get to attend the seance because I don't think it was going on then, I still have not had a chance to get back to see the seance, but we do get a chance today to hear what the fellow who is the medium at large on this big ship has to say, and talking about the seance, which he calls 57 Ghosts, and kind of how he came to do this kind of thing where he is doing his kind of thing. I'm not going to explain too much because he's got some good stories to tell. I'm sure he has reserved many stories for when you are actually there with him in the room when he's doing the seance, but he's got some pretty spooky stuff he's going to share with you here today. So please welcome my guest, Mr. Michael Rangel, here on The Magic Word. Today, my guest is someone who I have not known, but I had know about his work. And so I had an opportunity while in California to get a chance to sit down to chat with him because I was on the Queen Mary, and the Queen Mary has a regular seance that's going on. And I think what he does as conducting that seance is something that would be of interest to a lot of the listeners, as well as, of course, being a member of the Academy of Magical Arts. He had his own one-man show for a while out here in Los Angeles, Luminar, that ran for a while. So we might get into talking about one-man shows and developing those and how you get butts in the seats and all that kind of really good stuff. Beyond that, he is friends then with Aidan Sinclair. If you had an opportunity to go back and listen to the episode that we did with Aidan, who does a seance in the Stanley Hotel up in Colorado, but he also started this one, I believe, here on the Queen Mary. Well, I'm getting way deep in the weeds. Let's just get my guest in here. Here he is right now, Michael Rangel. Hey there, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Scott. Thank you for having me.
Oh, so I'm so glad to have a chance to chat with you. I'm sorry I started explaining all of the the resume part. I want you to talk about this kind of a thing. But before we do, just before we were started recording on this, we were talking a little bit about Greg Arce, and I was sorry to hear about his passing. But yes, you may not know that he was one of the people who had contributed also to Psychological Subtleties book. Banachek's my business partner, and we published the Psychological Subtleties, and Greg was one of the people who had contributed something to the second volume of that. I know he's been just a force, kind of an underground force for a long time, so I was sorry to hear of his passing.
Thank you. It was something that kind of rocked all of his friends' world. We were really devastated by his loss, but it was really great that we all got some time to spend with him before he passed away.
Right.
And right up until the very end, we were right by his side at the hospital bed, and he was joking. He was Greg, 100% Greg, still to the very end.
That's great.
Having us laughing, telling stories, still coming up with brilliant ideas for mentalism routines and magic routines, and helping us out with some of our problems that we were having. Just an incredible human being, and it was an honor just to be friends with him.
I know that Banachek always respected him, and he was one of the go-to guys also that he could go to if he needed to have something brushed up or taken care of or come up with a new idea.
Oh, he was incredible. Yeah. I mean, like I was telling you earlier, everybody seems to have their group that they came into magic with or started hanging out at the Magic Castle with. And my group consisted of Greg Arce, Shutogawa, who was just freshly in America.
He probably didn't speak very good English at all.
No, very little English at all. David Minkin,
sure,
who now has his one-man show at the Biltmore Hotel here in Los Angeles. Nabil Murday, who is a magician who a lot of people don't know, but they should. Mm-hmm. He has his own magic theater in Guam, which is ranked the #1 magic theater in all of Guam.
Is it a stage show? Is that the one that took the place then of, I remember that Rick Thomas was in Guam.
Yeah, it wasn't Rick Thomas's show. Nabil went in there and opened up something unique. He opened up a theater that is I think it seats maybe 40 people, 50 people. And
so kind of like a Warren and Annabelle's or something.
Yes. Uh-huh. So he does close up and parlor, but he also does stage illusions in that small environment.
The Zubricks took his place then also there in Guam, so.
And so, he kills it over there. He's an incredible comedy magician.
Still there, or is he here now?
No, he's still there.
Okay.
And, he's been doing that for many, many years. And he has incredible close-up chops. His parlor and stage magic is exceptional, and he's hilarious, but he's one of my best friends. He's like my brother. All these guys were like my brothers and are like my brothers. And when Greg passed, everybody kind of converged back to Los Angeles. Everybody flew in. And towards the end, we all came to spend time with him. And Shoot flew in from Hawaii, where he has his show in Oahu. And if you're ever in Hawaii, please
see show.
Yeah, go see Shoot's show. If you've never seen Shutogawa, you're missing out. He's an incredible master of the craft in so many ways. And not only will he fool you, but he will move you.
Right. Which is important with magic. I mean, anybody with some amount of skill can fool you, but to entertain you, to make the presentation meaningful and emotional and memorable, that's the real skill.
Yes. And, we all came in and we spent time with Greg and we laughed. And I mean, we went and spent like 6-7 hours at a time at his hospital bed.
Yeah.
And I remember we all walked in. There was, I was performing on the Queen later that night, so they picked me up in the morning, and I was staying on the Queen at the time, and we went to Greg's hospital bed.
We're talking about the Queen Mary.
Yeah, the Queen Mary, yes, in Long Beach.
Which is is permanently docked there. Yeah.
Yes. And we went into Greg's room, and he was sleeping, and he rolled over. We didn't want to wake him up.
Yeah.
And he rolled over, and I said, "Hey, Greg." And he opened his eyes and looked at us. And he said, "Am I dreaming? Is this a dream?" And he hadn't seen us all for a few years, and we all came in. Nabil from Guam, Shoot from Hawaii, and he had some other friends come in, and we all were just there, and we just started talking to him, and it was just an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Greg will always be in our hearts. And
so you had, it sounds like a pretty good and pretty tight group of people. You were saying like whenever it all entered at about the same time at the Magic Castle, the Academy of Magical Arts, and that was back in 2002-ish?
Yeah, I think Shoot came in. I started hanging out there in 99, 2000, coming in with friends that were members. And then I became a member in 2001, and Shoot started hanging out in 2002. And that's kind of where we all kind of just started hanging out.
Were you interested in seances, everything back at that time, or just kind of magic in general? Or
I've always been interested in the paranormal and supernatural and seances, and but I love magic in general. You know, it was a dream of mine since I was a little kid to be a member of the Magic Castle. I have a poem that I wrote when I was like in the 5th grade, talking about how I wish I was a member of the Magic Castle, and I still have it to this day.
Do you live in LA? I mean, you were born here?
Yeah, I was born in Montebello, which is a suburb.
Oh, okay.
Outside of Los Angeles.
So you've been familiar with the castle all your life, pretty much.
Yeah. It's funny. I didn't know what the castle looked like. I just heard about it.
It was just there.
Yeah, I drew a picture of a golden castle in the clouds. That's what I thought the Magic Castle was. But it meant a lot to me to be able to become a member of the castle and start to hang out and be around all these amazing magical minds and these legends, back when Bruce Servan was still hanging out at the castle and Billy McComb and, Ron Wilson and Max Maven, getting to know and become friends with Max and go have lunch with Max at Greenblatt's.
Now, Di had already died, so you probably never got to see Di Vernon there.
No, I just missed him. Yeah. Larry Jennings I missed.
Yeah.
But, it goes kind of in eras, right? After that, you had all the people that were students of Larry and Di hanging out and people like
John Carney.
Yeah. Bill Goodwin.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was different then. The castle was different then. It was more of a brotherhood. When I say brotherhood, I don't mean to.
No, it's community.
Community.
Yeah.
Everybody we enjoyed jamming. There was no internet. It was kind of like.
So you think it's changed over the last decade?
I think so. Completely. Yeah.
To the detriment? Or just going in a different direction?
There's always benefits and pluses. And then along with those benefits and pluses, you're going to have some things that sometimes are a negative aspect of it. Whatever it is, I think the older generation always kind of, doesn't seem to handle change too well.
That's true.
And just because it's something that we're comfortable with. Of
course.
And, I think it's amazing how magic has spread and how many new people are doing it and are just so excited to be a part of the art and show up in all these new members at the Magic Castle. It's incredible. And some of these people are just fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Well, now we're looking at a more global community. Certainly it used to be back when I first started performing there in the early 80s, in 81 or 2, 3, somewhere in there. Most of the people were from the U.S. There, of course, were people from overseas that came from time to time, but it was a real haul for them to get over there and an expense. It was an expense also even for those who in America, because they didn't provide, they being the Academy didn't provide for lodging or your airfare or reimbursement for anything. Basically, you had to come here to lose money. And so it has changed obviously a lot. Then over the years it became more and more well known and something that people were willing to do and travel and to lose money just because, hey, it's the castle, I'm working there. But it's gotten certainly a lot better. And so I think it's moved in a good direction. And it's good that I think Randy Pitchford had taken over and saved it at the right time when they needed an infusion of cash.
Incredible. What a blessing he's been. And I'm excited to see where the castle goes in the future,
Well, like you said, when you look at the internet, I mean, like during COVID, when there was a shutdown, they kind of reinvented themselves then at the time, as did everybody and other organizations, including the Magic Circle in London and other places then too. But then they had things that were going on line that you could attend even though you weren't there physically, which they continue to this day.
Yeah. I mean, I believe, a lot of the lectures are made available to the members, the magician members online. And
that's true. If you, in 22, I believe it was, or 23, let's see, this is 24, last year in 23, I lectured and it was my third or fourth, I think it was my fourth time of lecturing at the castle. And I didn't have a very good attendance. I mean, in the past, the parlor was packed all the way to the top. And all the other three lectures, the fourth, I may have a dozen. And the reason I think in part, I thought, okay, you've already seen me, although I'm doing a new lecture. But the point is, I think that people who were watching us had a video and they were asking questions from home and they were watching it live. And if they weren't, as you said, it's in the archives. You can watch it later.
Right.
So you can have more people access it literally all over the world at any time they want, as opposed to physically being there. So yeah, I think it's kind of a good thing, but a bad from the standpoint, I think I sold $50 worth of stuff.
So. Oh man. Well, for all of you listening, log on to Scott's website as a treasure trove of information that could help you.
Well, speaking of helping, I wanted to talk about seances because of what you were doing. We were talking about the Queen Mary then too. And I mentioned Aidan Sinclair, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he'd been doing the one in the Stanley Hotel for a while, and then this was something that he came down and opened and then went back, and he's still kind of coordinating this, or what's his involvement?
Well, Aidan is the producer of 57 Ghosts.
Okay. That's what the name of the seance is.
Yes.
Explain what 57 Ghosts is.
Yeah. 57 Ghosts is the theatrical seance that I do on the Queen Mary in Long Beach. And for those of you that don't know about the Queen Mary is an ocean liner, considered to be the greatest ocean liner ever built, the greatest ocean liner of all time. And she sailed between 1936 and 1967. And in 1967, she made her final journey from England all the way to Long Beach, where she's docked now. And during her service as an ocean liner, 57 people died aboard her. Thus, the name of the seance, 57 Ghosts.
I see.
And
various causes.
Yes, various causes. Wouldn't that be something if they all died from the same
from food poisoning or something, for example? It's
choked on a chicken bone.
Yeah, we need a new chef.
But Aiden had a magic theater on board the Queen Mary prior to COVID. And he did his show Illusions of the Past, Passed. And it was this amazing magic show that kind of combined magic, storytelling, and the paranormal and supernatural. And if you ever get a chance to see Aiden do his show, I highly recommend it. He's one of the greatest performers on the planet, and
high praise.
And oh, absolutely. And he's so unassuming. He's so humble and soft-spoken. Mm-hmm. And you don't expect that to come from somebody that's so soft-spoken and humble. But man, he really knows how to tell a tale and pull everything together and draw you in and make you feel something. Mm-hmm. And he had originally opened up doing his show at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, which, if people don't know, the Stanley Hotel was the inspiration for Stephen King to write the book The Shining. Mm-hmm. And it's haunted. It really,
there's no other way to say it.
It's haunted. It's one of the most haunted places on earth. And he opened up this beautiful magic theater on the grounds of the Stanley called the Magic Underground. Mm-hmm. And
it seats just very few people, right?
It seats 80 people.
80
people.
I thought it was more like 40 or 30.
No, it's like it's incredible. You're on the grounds of the Stanley, and the Stanley has the main building. Then it has another building where the single gentlemen used to stay, because it wasn't polite for them to stay with the families and area. Single women. Yeah.
Right.
So that's where the single gentlemen would stay. And then they have this place that used to be, the stables, and, they converted the stables into this wonderful gastropub. And below in the basement is the Magic Underground. Mm-hmm. And if you have to make a pilgrimage to go see this, because it is the most beautiful magic theater I have ever been in. Mm-hmm. Bar none. It has, I don't want to give too much away because I want you to experience it, but.
Well, no, you've also touched on something I think is very important about the fact that this is a beautiful structure, but people are, as you're describing that, are picturing that, I think, in their minds as something when they saw the movie The Shining with Jack Nicholson. And this is not where that was filmed. The book was based upon that, but that beautiful hotel was a completely different site. And so if you go there thinking, it's going to look like the movie, no.
Yeah, I believe that hotel where it was filmed was in Oregon or Washington.
I think you're right. I think it was something over the Northwest, someplace.
All those horror aficionados are going to yell at me because I don't know the answer to that. But, so he started there, and he opened up this incredible magic theater. And then I believe right when everything started to open up from lockdown, he went back and opened up the theater again, started working there again. He had to close down right prior to pandemic. He had to close down his theater at the Queen Mary. So, after things opened up, he started his show up at the Stanley again, and he started producing a seance. It's called 13, and Hannibal, incredible magician.
Yes.
Incredible storyteller. He does the seance 13 at the Stanley. And also, if you're in Colorado, make the pilgrimage to the Stanley, go see 13, go see Hannibal. You won't be disappointed. Talk about masters of storytelling and making you feel something. So that's where they started off. And he started bringing in magicians to perform at the Stanley, at the Magic Underground. Then Hannibal was holding down the seance every night at the Stanley. And he gave me a call in December of 2022, early December. And he asked me if I would be interested in possibly doing the seances. He was going to be opening up his theater back again at the Queen Mary. And he flew me up to Colorado. And that was in January of 2023. And I went and I spent several days there and saw him do his show twice. And I saw Hannibal do his seance 3 times. And we just talked for hours and hours and hours. And at the end, he offered me the position.
Did he say he saw you perform?
Oh yeah, he
there,
saw my.
or, yeah.
No, he saw my show at the Magic Castle a few times. And
but you've never done the seance in the Houdini seance room, have you?
No, I've never done. Well, I've seen it.
Because Rob does it. Rob Zabrecki, right?
I've never seen Rob. I saw Misty Lee, who was incredible. I saw Leo Koska, who was great. Leo held down the seance in the Houdini room for many, many years.
Right.
And I tell you, Misty was an incredible storyteller. Just a great magician in general. I don't think she gets enough credit for how amazing she is, you know.
I've been wanting to talk with her. I've been a couple of times in which we were trying to get together and our schedules didn't match, but I think she would be a lovely guest.
She's like 2 miles from here.
Is she? Well,
yeah.
I should give her a call.
You should give her a call. Yes, absolutely. Okay. She had her own show, I believe, at Morongo Casino here out towards Gabazon and Palm Springs area.
Okay.
A huge stage show, illusion show. And she's killing it. She was really doing a great job. And, I think she'd have a lot to offer you and your listeners. But, going back to the Queen Mary, so
Aiden offered you this.
Offered me the position.
Yeah.
And I accepted. And that was in January of 2023. And, the catch was the Queen wasn't open. It was still shut down from COVID.
Okay. And,
it hadn't opened up again. And
in 2023, they had
2023, it had not.
Wow.
It wasn't locked down because of COVID, but it had been shut down during the lockdown of COVID.
So it was slow to come back.
And it was slow to come back because the original the owners that had it before COVID lockdown, they defaulted on their payments, and the city of Long Beach came in and bought the Queen Mary. And they got new management for it. Got a new hotel management company to run it. And then they put in like $2 million in restoring the Queen. And they finally opened it up. And, Aiden, had me start working on writing the seance in September. And then in October.
He had final say on the script?
Well, I think he had final say. If he didn't like something, of course I wasn't going to have it in there. But how can I say this? Aiden is the most amazing person to work for and work with.
Okay.
Because he knows exactly what he's looking for. And he picks the right people for those situations.
I have talked with another friend on the podcast once who had gone in and was not the right fit for the Stanley. And I think he admitted it wasn't also, but Aiden said he wasn't. And I mean, he's had some people coming, he knows what he wants, exactly right. And he's, I guess, nice about how he says, you're not the right guy.
And he told me, he said, look, I want to bring you in. I want you to curate this seance. I want you to write it. I want it to be personal to you.
Yeah.
I want it to be...
Because it's got to come from your heart. When you're telling it, you can't sound like you're reading a script.
Exactly. But he also wanted it to be relevant to the Queen Mary.
Of course.
And so...
With the 57 ghosts. I mean.
Exactly. And he was the most supportive, positive, clear person I've ever worked with. And, just talk about being set up for success. And, my style of magic is a very heavy storytelling style. I wasn't a bizarre magician, although over time, there's things that I've performed that are a little bit darker. But I never considered myself to be part of the bizarre magicians, clan, so to speak.
You belong to PEA?
No.
Okay.
But I've always loved Eugene Berger, and I respect all of the bizarre magicians out there, and read a lot of people's works, like Christians and so forth. But it was never something that I really wanted to, just totally dedicate my life to. But I just like telling good stories and making people feel something with magic.
Right.
And,
in a serious way rather than a comical way.
But still, I think, there's still room for levity when you do such things.
Well, that's true. You got to release the tension.
Exactly. And I think, that's very important with any show that you do. It
can't be all straight serious and people walking out going, oh man, that was kind of a bummer. There needs to be kind of the peaks and plateaus.
Yeah, my background is in music.
Oh, well, I can tell you got all these guitars behind you.
And I was a professional musician for many years before I kind of fell into doing magic. And you need to have dynamics when you're playing music live. You can't be playing at the same level, the same tempo, full volume all the time. You have to break it down, and
I thought about that whenever I listen to Irish music. There'll be one that's a nice kind of a happy jig, and the next one is some ballad that's a little bit sad. And then they come back up again. It was back and forth. You just can't have all one or the other.
Yeah. And, you'll be playing live on stage with a band, and you could be raging, just really in a groove, and people are getting up and dancing, and you're at full volume, and the drummer will get signaled from the leader of the band, and he'll break it down. You go, and then you could actually hear a whisper over the band playing.
Wow.
And they'll slowly bring the music back up again. And I think that that's a great way to approach performing, whether you're doing a magic show, you're doing stand-up comedy, you're doing theater, you're doing mentalism, you're doing a seance. I think it's important to have dynamics and to have that kind of texture in what you're doing. And it doesn't come right away. It comes through performing and workshopping it and figuring out, why is this not working? Why am I not touching them the way I want to? Why are they not feeling or reacting? And one of the things Aiden told me was that a lot of times magicians, when they come in to do this type of work, they can't handle it because they're used to getting the applause.
And seances are not built for that.
No.
Yeah.
A matter of fact,
we discourage that.
I often think if there's been a few times when people have applauded where I think, man, I messed up. I did something wrong. Because if they're applauding, then it's not feeling like a seance. It feels like a magic show.
Exactly right. When we're done, I think it was, in a dozen years or so, I've been doing seances. Remember one particular one in which that they started to applaud. And I think the rest of the audience kind of shut them down because there were 2-3 people were applauding and the others were serious. And the people weren't picking up in the rest of the group, and they realized, I guess this is not appropriate.
Yeah. It's an uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
And we all have egos, and I think that applause feeds that ego, and we're used to it as performers of getting the applause, but it takes some getting used to understand that, you know what? My ego doesn't need to be fed.
Yeah.
The people that are sitting and attending the seance, they need to be nourished. They need to be fed. They need to be given something that they can feel and relate to. And that's what it's, I've gotten real good at putting that ego aside and going into doing this seance. And, wow, what a journey, and how much I've learned and how much it's made me a better magician for it, you know?
Right. Well, it does, because it kind of forces you to actually write a script, because too many times, and the magicians will fall on the trick itself, I guess. They're dependent upon the trick to do the talking for them. As far as let me rephrase that. Have the trick do the magic for them while they're just kind of trying to think, okay, what can I say next in the moment? And if they're not a funny person, naturally, it's just strained.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's that old magic shop type of trap that a lot of people fall into. You know, they get interested in magic and they go to a magic shop, or they go online and they buy some magic tricks. And it doesn't take a lot of skill or understanding to perform these, but you'll fool people.
Yeah.
You'll get attention. And they start to collect these magic tricks inside a little box, and they'll take it with them to parties and start bringing them out. And they'll do one trick with one deck, then they'll pull out another deck and do another trick. And they'll get used to that attention that they get. But that's like the tricks, the sleight of hand, the effects, all these things are tools, right? There are paintbrushes, there are paints, there are canvases. It's like me handing somebody a guitar.
Okay.
And expecting them to play Segovia.
Right.
Or play a Jimi Hendrix song, you know, or even just sing a Beatles song, you know.
Okay.
The guitar doesn't do the work. It's the instrument, right? It's the person that coaxes this expression, this music out of the instrument. That's what's vital. That's what's important. And I think it was Eugene Berger that said there's many rooms in the House of Magic.
Mansion of Magic, right.
And I've learned to really respect that, and that there's room for that guy with the little case with all the different decks.
That's true.
Because that brings him joy. And who are we to say, you know, that person shouldn't feel joy? And so learning how to use these effects and these techniques inside the seance, not as a punchline, but more as a way to communicate with the guests inside the seance and help them to feel something, because it's not a spook show.
There's a big difference. You're right. That's a good point.
And I love a spook show. I tell you, did you ever see Play Dead?
Believe it or not, I saw the movie. It was filmed, but there were a lot of reasons why it can't be aired. And I was at, I think, an IBM convention, and Todd Robbins had brought it and had special privilege, apparently, say, we can show this one time for this group. There'll be no video or people taking pictures of this. And so I got to see the thing.
I saw that movie.
Yeah.
They showed it. And they had a Q&A.
At the castle? Yeah.
No, they did it at this theater in Santa Monica.
Really?
I want to say the Lemley.
Okay.
And on Santa Monica Boulevard, and they did a Q&A afterwards, and that was amazing. But I had seen the original.
Oh, you did out in New York?
Not New York.
They played here?
Here at the Geffen Playhouse.
Okay.
And I have to say, it was the greatest magic show I've ever seen in my life.
Well, from what I saw, it was amazing. I'd love to have seen that live, because obviously there were some red light type of seance things. I mean, it was dark, and without the lighting, you couldn't have seen. But so you had to use your imagination. When you're in the theater watching this in real time, as opposed to a movie theater, you get to see kind of what's going on. Anyhow, it is amazing. It was an amazing show. I'm sure not to be repeated. But the reason, as I understand it, why the movie can't be released is because some of the people who were involved with this have not signed off on allowing their work to be shown.
Oh.
And they have gone on apparently to larger things. I mean, I don't know. Let's say, for an example, the lighting person or the makeup or the sound, whoever it is, now is doing other things. It's like, well, I'd really rather, leave that alone and not be associated with that movie. So I don't want people to know. I mean, like Bette Midler did The Greatest Story Ever Untold. Are you familiar with this?
No.
I saw this in 1972, maybe in Denver, in an art theater in which she played the Mother Mary to Jesus. Oh, wow. And it was a complete parody, a satire. It was a midnight art theater, and I was young, and had been drinking a lot at that, and so was everyone else at this movie. I remember very little about it other than it was extremely sacrilegious. And as she's gotten older, apparently, Bette Midler has regretted doing that movie and has pulled all copies. And if it's ever available someplace, she buys them up, or so she does not allow that to be shown anyplace. And so, because she said it wasn't one of her better acting roles, plus just the content was not something, as she had children and realized in later life this isn't something. So,
well, there's a certain specialness. Is that a word? It is. You just made it up.
Yeah, I'll go with it.
To feeling that privilege of being able to experience something that will never be experienced again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to being able to have seen it live and to seeing the movie, it was spine tingling. It was,
Ricky Jay was that way for a long time.
Yes.
You could only have experienced that, or the show that Derek Ogadio had done. I'd love to have seen that.
Helder's doing his show at the Geffen.
Oh, is he?
Yes. And Helder's amazing.
Yes.
One of the greatest magicians in the world, and does a regular show at the Geffen. He changes it and rewrites it and writes a new show. It's actually a new show every time he does it. And
wow.
We're so blessed in Los Angeles to have so many incredibly
pocket theaters.
Yeah, theaters, but also
live.
Talented
that's true.
magicians and performers. Mm-hmm. Rob Zabrecki, Dave Minkin, and all these new performers that are coming up,
Right.
It's a privilege to be in Los Angeles and be able to see all of them and to be a part of it. But I have to say, whoever is the person that's holding out, signing off on Play Dead, coming out to the general public, please, I'm begging you, sign off.
Allow it to be released.
The world needs to see it.
We do. Going back to the seance again and to the Queen Mary. You said there were 57 ghosts that supposedly, or that people who have died over the time. And I assume that you had done a lot of research on that to begin with.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So who was the most bizarre? I guess I'm going to rephrase that. What was the most bizarre death of one of the people?
Well, it's very interesting that they all died in their own way. They all have their own story that brought them aboard the Queen, and
to begin with,
and then they all had their own way and how they met their ultimate death. One of the most, well, first of all, let me say this, that the Queen Mary was an ocean liner from 1936 to 1967.
Right.
And
during the war was a troop carrier.
During the war, she was commissioned by the United States Armed Forces and was a troop transport, and was taking troops from United States to Europe to go fight. Mm-hmm. And then on the way back, they'd come back as a hospital ship and bringing back prisoners of war.
And one of the reasons I understand that they used that ship as opposed to others is because of how fast it was, because it only took 3.5 days from New York to England. Exactly. If they went around to L.A., that would be like 3 months or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
because it was too big to go through the Panama Canal.
It was too big to go through the Panama Canal. It didn't fit in any of the locks, and it would have to take the long way down around South America, which she took for her final voyage in 1967. When she came from England all the way to Long Beach, she went all the way down along the coast to South America, around the Cape Horn of Chile, back up the coast to Long Beach, where she is now. Now, during that time period, during World War II, she was painted gray. And she was called the Gray Ghost. And
the reason was to...
It was camouflage.
Right, to protect her from
the U-boats.
Right.
And so...
Which was, by the way, the German submarines.
Yes, German submarines. Now, 57 people died on the Queen Mary during her life as an ocean liner.
Mm-hmm. You're not including people who may have died, let's say, coming back. That's a whole other thing. As you said, a hospital ship coming back. I'm sure a lot of people died.
Not just a hospital ship, but the prisoners of war that they brought back from Europe. Mm-hmm. the Nazis were kept in the rope hold on the way back.
They probably weren't treated real well.
No, and probably deservedly so.
Yeah.
So you could still go there, and Aidan Sinclair, he produces the Grey Ghost Project, which is a 3-hour-long ghost hunting tour through the Queen Mary.
A walking tour kind of a thing?
Yes, but
Wow.
it's a ghost hunting tour which uses the Estes method with K2 meters and spirit boxes.
I'm not familiar with the Estes method. Is that something new, or I understand
it was invented in Estes
EMF
Park.
meter.
Yes, with the K2 meters and spirit boxes, which is
Sure.
a radio that
right.
cycles through all the different channels.
Yeah.
And you're sensory deprived, so you have a blindfold on and you have noise canceling headphones around your ears. So all you hear is words, but you can't hear what people are saying around you.
Mm-hmm.
So people will ask questions of the spirits, and the thought being that if the spirits wants to communicate, they'll communicate through the words that are being channeled through the radio.
Right.
So you might ask.
We've used that before in our seances.
Yes. So you might ask a question like, are you here? Is there anybody here? Yes. Somebody will blurt out, yes.
Yeah, because it's quickly cycling, as you say, from one channel to another, just different frequencies they're picking up. And
exactly. So, going back to the Queen's history, one of the, I think.
So on the Grey Ghost,
the Grey Ghost, yes. One of the most horrible incidents is the SS Curacao was a destroyer that was running, as an escort to the Queen across the Atlantic. And the Queen was making its way towards Europe with like 10,000 troops on board her on her way to go fight. And the Curacao was making a zigzag pattern, and there was a miscommunication. And the Queen sheared the Curacao in half.
Cleaved it.
Right in half. And she couldn't stop to rescue the troops, because if she slowed down, she would be at risk of being torpedoed by a Nazi U-boat. So unfortunately, the majority of those troops, around 300, died, drowned in the cold Atlantic. So we don't include that in the story, but even as I tell it, it's quite chilling.
Sure.
There's all kinds of stories of people and how they died on the ship. One of the most gruesome, I think, for me, is there was, on the last voyage in 1967, a man by the name of Mr. Horsbaugh, who the crew affectionately referred to as Lobster, because he was Irish and didn't take to excessive heat or too much sun too kindly. Whenever he get overheated, he'd beat red like a lobster. He was the Queen's salad chef on her final journey.
Okay.
And the Queen, like you said, didn't fit through any of the locks of the Panama Canal, so she had to take for her last journey the long route around South America.
Yep.
She had no air condition in 1967. And the ventilation system consisted of opening up the porthole to your window and hoping that the ocean breeze cooled you off, which the crew members didn't have any. They had
they're below the
inside
waterline,
cabins. Yes. It got very hot and very uncomfortable, and poor Mr. Horsbaugh just went to sleep one night and didn't wake up. And when the ship's medical examiner did his autopsy, his internal body temperature clocked in at 136 degrees.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
He just was cooked alive.
Yeah, poor little lobster.
Boiled lobster.
Exactly.
Now, another one I understand, there was a guy who was trapped in when they were closing the fire door and was crushed.
Yes, we don't talk about him in the seance because he still has family members alive.
Oh, I understand.
And just out of respect for the family, we don't talk about him.
Okay.
But yes, that did happen. One of the most ironic incidents is after World War II, when all the troops... So there
are more than 57, but you don't talk about...
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, no, 57. He's part of the 57.
But there's some, you just can't get around everybody.
Yeah, we can't get to everybody.
Sure, okay, I'm sorry.
There's one person who was coming home, a private was coming home after fighting in World War II, and he was getting off the Queen in New York. And he had all his stuff, just made it through World War II. made it back alive. The war's over. He's coming home to his family to see his loved ones, and he falls off the gangway, falls down and hits his head.
Oh, wow.
And dies.
Oh, my.
There's all kinds of incredible stories, but really the whole crux of the seance is about really one ghost in particular. And that's the ghost of a little girl named Jackie.
Okay.
And Jackie is the most famous ghost in Queen Mary history. And it is said that Jackie is the ghost of a little girl who died by drowning in the first-class swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of like the foundation of the seance. And as time goes on, it's evolving, and we'll be incorporating more of the 57 into the seance and the experience. But right now, that's what we kind of center the whole experience around. And what's interesting is people come in here, I think, expecting one thing, and they leave with a totally different experience. And it's very intimate.
They're coming in wanting to be scared, but they actually learn history, or vice versa?
No, I think they come in wanting to be scared, like a haunted house or a spook show, or expect a glowing skeleton to fall from the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And what ends up happening is, I think the storytelling draws them in, and then they're surprised about how intimate and personal that the seance becomes to them. And it really does. We really do include all the people into the seance, and they end up becoming emotionally moved. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, just the other night, 2 men were crying inside the seance. Really tough, like strong men.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, it's funny to have people come into the seance like this.
You know, with their arms crossed. It's like going to a magic show. Hey, fool me, boy. Magic kid.
Yeah. And I think there's different people.
They're non-believers, and they kind of come in like that.
Yeah. There's
people bring their own sense of belief system into a seance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's different reasons why people come. Some people come because they're curious. Some because they have this fascination for the supernatural, the paranormal. Mm-hmm. And others come because their wife or husband or partner brought a ticket and drugged them along for the ride.
Sure.
And so, you know, they're sitting there, and for whatever reason that people have skepticism, it's nice to see them transform over the 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. And to see them.
That's a pretty good seance, 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The whole experience is about 90 minutes long. And, you know, it's first of all, the chamber. Did you get a chance to peek inside the chamber?
I did. Mm-hmm.
It's incredible.
Yeah. It's a good space.
Yeah. And,
I saw the room where Aiden did the
carpet. Yeah.
Yeah. The past. What was that called again?
Illusions of the Past.
Illusions of the Past. And we kind of walked through there, I think, but then she didn't have the key to your room, but I could see through the glass.
Yeah. I wish I would have been there when you guys were there. I would have loved to have shown you the chamber. Next time you come, I'd love for you to come and come see the seance.
Thanks.
And be my guest, and maybe we could have some dinner.
Yeah.
But the space,
great clam chowder there, by the way.
Oh, yes. The food there is exceptional.
Yeah.
As soon as they walk into the chamber, they have this old 1940s radio playing music.
Yeah. Start putting you in the mood.
Yeah. And you see these different antiquities on the walls being displayed, and you see the pictures of all 57 people who passed away aboard the Queen. And
we walked through that, and we saw that red light. I mean, it was kind of on those photos and underneath their names and all that. So that's what you're talking about, that hallway?
That's inside Aiden's old theater.
Okay.
Those pictures are still up. But
so it's different from yours.
Yeah, we have. We also have them on the wall inside the seance chamber.
Okay.
On our deck. And, you know, there's a lot to be said for atmosphere.
Oh, and,
sure. You
create that one to begin with. You mean you want people to start getting into the mood. Sure. As quickly as they can without you, before you even say your first word.
Yeah, I think as soon as they step on the property, they start to experience the show.
Sure.
And I'm talking about a magic show. Like, we don't call this a show at all. This is a theatrical seance. It's an experience for these people to go through. And we don't want them to get the idea that this is a show or a magic show.
Because again, if you say it's a show, that implies applause.
Yes. And it's funny when we do get people from the castle that come to see it. one of the biggest notes that magicians give is there's not enough magic in it.
Of course.
And, you know, it's a different type of mentality.
Well, it's interesting. How do you handle, let's say, living and dead tests? Like what we do is to say, when you're thinking or writing down the name of someone who is not so close to you that it would bring an emotion that you would cry. We don't want people to experience we want to go up to that point, but then not beyond that. So it's like someone perhaps who might have been known to you maybe from afar, or a related uncle or somebody.
Well, we don't shy away from that.
Oh, you don't?
No, but we do put some parameters on it. We don't want anybody that's, you know, died recently. We ask that the person be at least 5 years or more since they passed, because we all need time to heal.
Right.
We all need time to grieve. And, you know, we have these parameters that we give them, and we make sure that people, if they're going to come and take part in this experience, that they meet those parameters, because we don't want anybody having an emotional breakdown.
Sure.
But we find that if people are moved to the point where they have tears in their eyes, that they come back to us afterwards and they thank us. And we've had people say that it's been cathartic for them, which is an incredible feeling, you know. By no means are we telling people that what we're doing is legitimate, you know, speaking to the dead or right, communicating with spirits. This is a theatrical seance. It's clearly billed as that on the website and all of the advertisement. But yet we are open to things happening. This is the Queen Mary, one of the most haunted places on earth. Of course, there are things that we plan out. But Scott, I'll tell you, the first time I went on the Queen, I didn't feel anything. Okay. I was like, I don't feel anything.
Just another boat.
No, yeah, I was channeling my inner Max Maven and being skeptical.
Yeah.
And, as I spent more and more time, you just have these interesting things that happen that can't be explained.
Like what?
I walked in one time getting ready to do the seance, and I do some pendulum work, and I have this old antique twine that I used for the pendulum, and the twine was missing.
Okay.
Now, there's only 3 keys to that room, and there's a security system that's linked up to video cameras that are linked up to phones. You could watch it on a computer or on your iPhone, and Aiden's alerted whenever somebody goes into the room.
Yeah.
So I call Aiden and say, "Hey, did you, when you were here, take the twine for the pendulum? I can't find it anywhere." I said, "No, man, I haven't been in there." And his fiance, Becca, hadn't been in there. Nobody had been in there. So I'm panicking because I have like an hour before the seance starts and I have nothing to use for the pendulum. So I go upstairs and I search around and I'm finding like a ribbon to use.
Okay.
I come downstairs and for something tells me look in the trash. And we have a trash can on the side stage, kind of backstage area of the seance chamber. And I go in there and it's pitch black, that little room. And I shine my light in there. And sitting on top of the trash is the twine.
Wow.
And it's tied in a circle with a knot.
Wow.
And I didn't tie it. I used to just use the twine and tie it around the ring.
Yeah, sure.
And it was just sitting right on top. And I get chills thinking about it now. And I laughed. I took the twine.
Untied it?
I didn't untie it. It's going to stay tied forever.
And so you're using the ribbon now?
Yeah.
Do you tell the story during your show?
Sometimes when people ask. But, you know, I like to keep such things for myself, you know. There's these steps that we walk down on the way to the chamber that they're the steps that lead down from the A deck to the B deck.
Correct.
And 2 people died on those stairs.
That trip fell?
Yes. The A deck, stairs are at the very front of the
You mean
Queen.
back when it was still an ocean liner?
Yes.
Okay, you don't mean like for your show, coming down to see the show?
No, nobody died while they were coming down. Nobody's died yet.
Okay. Yet. I see. Okay.
But you know,
there's still hope. There's still time.
there's still hope. When those stairs leading down from the A deck to the B deck, 2 people died. And the first one was a man by the name of Mr. Henry Seichel. And he died September 16th, 1949. Now, at the front of the Queen, if you notice when you're walking towards the front, there's a slant to the floor.
I have noticed that.
And that slant evens out as you get towards the midsection of the Queen. That's where the ship is its most stable. That's where all the first class cabins and the suites are. But as you go to the front, not so much. That's where the brunt of the ocean's fury was felt.
That's what I understand.
Because
it's really rocking up and down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, Mr. Henry Seichel was walking up those steps at the front of the ship.
I know exactly which steps you're talking about. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes. So,
because they're steep also.
Oh, yeah. And he got his way to the very top of the stairs, almost to safety, when he made the unfortunate decision to let go of the handrail.
Oh, boy.
Right at that moment, the Queen caught a wave, launching Mr. Seichel through the air to where he hit his head on the overhang of the steps, killing him instantly. He died of a basal skull fracture.
Wow.
Now, this is where things get interesting. 10 years later, 10 years to the exact date, September 16th, 1959, Miss Elizabeth Boothman, walking up the same steps, loses her balance, loses her footing, falls down the stairs, and suffers a traumatic life-ending head injury. Now, she doesn't die instantly. She maintains her consciousness just long enough at the bottom of the stairs to utter her last words. Her last words were, "Why did he push me?"
Oh, my gosh. You're giving me goosebumps now.
So, true story. There was a lot of people that witnessed Miss Boothman's fall. They all rushed to her assistance. They all attested to the same fact that there was nobody on the stairs with Miss Boothman when she fell. She was all by herself. So, flash forward to when Aidan had his Illusions of the Past show there. He comes early to the ship to set up for the show, and he sees a cleaning lady crying on the steps, sitting down on the steps. And he asks her, "Are you okay?" And she tells him that she was cleaning the stairs, vacuuming, and she loses her balance and starts to fall back. And a man catches her, sets her down on the stairs, and says, "I'm sorry." Then walks up the stairs, around the banister, and vanishes.
Wow.
True story.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's interesting things that have happened on the Queen.
And I've heard also that there is a chair that the lady was seen sitting in there, and they said, "Hey, you shouldn't be in here," and the general manager said to leave.
Yeah, that, and
they
also
talked to her for like 10 minutes. The apparition was there.
Yes, it's amazing, these apparitions that happen.
And several people have seen it too. I mean, it wasn't like just you telling the story and going, "Yeah, right."
Yes. The interesting thing to me is that I always thought a ghost or apparition was kind of this translucent human form.
Yeah, you see through.
Yeah, that's what we brought up.
Yeah,
to
the
see,
movies, right.
But a lot of these times, these people see these apparitions and they look like you and me. And then they realize later on that what they saw was a ghost. And, you know, there's always stories about the lady in white, a woman in this beautiful white wedding dress dancing by herself. And a lot of times people will say they'll see her dancing late at night and they'll hear the piano playing on A deck, the piano that Liberace used to play.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And we have kind of this beautiful vintage white wedding dress from the 30s inside the chamber to try and attract that energy.
Right.
So, you know, I'm skeptical, and so is Aidan, and so is Becca, who runs the Grey Ghost Project. But at the same time, you stay there long enough, you start to see things, and you you smile.
Right.
And you go, you have to laugh. You have to laugh. It's it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And, I tell you, to be able to go there and go to work and every night and see her lit up in all her majesty. And I have some personal history with the Queen too. I have my grandfather worked on the Queen. I found out.
Really?
Yeah. He was one of the bartenders on the Queen, and I didn't find that out until I was staying on the Queen, which was pretty amazing. That's tied inside the seance too. So,
right.
It's an incredible feeling. It's an incredible blessing. If you would have told me 25 years ago that I'd be doing this,
Now, there have to be some stories, and also the people are telling you. I think this is what perpetuates that as well, because if you start telling somebody something, that almost opens them up to saying, I think, in other words, they may have seen something and it might have buried it in their subconscious such that, did that really happen or not? I don't want to talk about it. Then you bring it up, it's like, oh my gosh, that happened to me, or I saw this or that. And then one thing or another starts to blossom and a whole story can evolve. I remember in Richard Wiseman's book on paranormalities, I believe it was something, he was talking about how that actually you could make up a story, and once people start hearing that, they add to it and make up a whole tale.
Eventually. That's beautiful, though, isn't it?
It is. It is absolutely beautiful. Yeah,
it's that old game of telephone.
Exactly right.
And I mean, that's how folklore and legends and myths.
Yeah, sure.
It's what we all those archetypes that we've.
But people come into your seance, I'm sure, bringing their own stories. Afterwards, they want to talk to you about their experience, I assume.
Oh, absolutely.
What's kind of some weird things that they tell you?
Well, let me think back. There's so many. And as time goes on,
every night, I'm sure.
As time goes on, you find more and more people, or I find more and more people wanting to stick around and talk to me and share their experiences with me.
More now than earlier. I wonder why.
Well,
maybe they're comfortable with you.
I think I've become more comfortable.
Sure.
In doing the seance.
Right. You're just not a performer.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it's more of a shared experience. And I think, they feel like they can trust me more. Mm-hmm. That I'm not some kind of, con man trying to make them believe anything. It's just kind of an experience we're going through. And so people have come up and shared all kinds of experiences with me, and some of them are kind of out there, and I have to just kind of smile and
say,
yeah, like they'll say, oh, Jackie, talk to me. They've been coming up aboard the Queen and doing their own paranormal investigations, and that Jackie talks to them and the spirits communicate with them. And sometimes, you just kind of have to smile and go, yeah, well, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. But other times people have told me, just last night, they told me a story. Like I told you, there was a couple of men that cried in the seance, and one of them, came over and told me that his brother had passed away years ago. Mm-hmm. And his brother was this big 6'8", close to 400-pound man, a giant. And he loved his brother very much. And after his brother passed away, his wife was at home folding the laundry, and she saw this shadowy image, a big hulking image, walk across the hallway. Mm-hmm. And she calls her husband to tell him, and he said, yeah, I saw the same thing.
Wow.
And they would see this image in the house, and they said that they just felt that was their brother, and they would see it clear as day.
Yeah.
And I get chills thinking about it now. And I've heard stories like that from people before, where these apparitions come to them and these people have no explanation for it. And, it's been said that we as human beings, each and every one of us are made up of energy. Mm-hmm. And when we die, that energy doesn't die with us.
Correct.
It just transforms. Mm-hmm. You can't kill energy. So maybe that is the energy of our loved ones still kind of lingering about, kind of like a person looking back through an old photo album, going back to those places where they have fond memories. Who's to say, really? But
You have to respect their opinion. My mother had, after my father had passed, told me that she saw him in her bedroom hovering over the bed. And she hadn't really shared that with anybody else, but she wanted to let me know about that and just kind of looked at me and said, what do you think about that? And I said, I believe that you believe it. And that's what's important.
You know, Scott, my grandmother, my Nana Margaret, she passed away in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of us were doing this thing where a bunch of magicians were going and doing this thing. They had this, it was like a precursor to Zoom.
Okay.
Where you would put this video camera on your TV and it would connect to another video camera anywhere else in the world through the internet.
Okay.
And you could video chat with people.
Yeah.
So in order to sell it, they hired a bunch of magicians to perform magic tricks to people that were at these showrooms and malls across America during Christmas holiday shopping season. So Pop Hayden, Dave Minkin, myself, almost all the magicians in LA that if they weren't working a gig that night were going and doing this. So I went the week after my grandmother passed away. I went to go work in this little office building, and it was late at night, and I got out of my shift and I was walking to the elevator, and I walked through this little area, maybe about 3 feet wide in front of the elevator, and I could smell my Nana Margaret all over me.
Wow.
You know that smell that's all grandmas have?
I know what you mean.
It's a mixture of their perfume, their body lotion, and the fabric softener that they used, you know? I could smell her.
It's like when you hug her, you know what there's a smell there.
Yes. But the funny thing is I walked around the whole elevator bank to see if it was maybe a cleaning woman that had that same scent.
Right.
It wasn't in any place else but in that little round section.
Interesting.
And I went home and I went to sleep, and I thought maybe she'd come to me, and she didn't. And the whole week went by. I kind of had this hope that maybe it was a sign. And at the very end of the week, I was just exhausted and depressed, and I went to sleep, and I hear this voice in my dream call to me, and it was my grandmother. And we went over and I hugged her and talked to her, and we spent time in my dream together. And when I woke up, I could smell her. Now, if this was just sense memory, you know, perhaps maybe some kind of trick my mind was playing on me. Maybe I was grasping on to, you know, her memory and trying to cling on to it.
Sure.
Or it was something else. I don't know, but either way, I felt something. And I'm going to treasure that moment for the rest of my life. And that's what I think I try to do with 57 Ghosts, is give people maybe just one moment where they feel something like that. And sometimes that's just enough, you know?
So where can people go if they want to see the seance, 57 Ghosts, and how often do you present this?
Okay. 57ghosts.com. You can get tickets. We'll be doing this throughout Halloween, Wednesday through Sunday.
Okay.
And, then we'll continue to do it. We do it in perpetuity, but in the slower seasons after Halloween season, we're going to be doing it, probably 3-4 times a week, maybe Thursday through Sunday, until things pick up. It kind of goes in peaks and valleys, but we're there year round. And you can follow us on social media at 57 Ghost Show at all the socials. And, you know, if you're going to be coming by, please, you know, give me a shout out. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to see you. Maybe hang out, talk to you before or afterwards. Yeah, it would be an honor to have you all come out and see it.
Well, and then to close and wrap up, the name of my podcast is called The Magic Word. I always like to know what it is that is your philosophy of life. What is important to you? We had some things here. We have a lot of things we've discussed over here, but what makes you tick every morning to wake up and keep you going?
You know, I'd say love. Love of family, love of friends, love of your art, Everything you do with love, because I don't think there's anything more magical than sharing your love with people. It comes across. People can always tell when you give them a wooden nickel, whether you're performing at the Vernon table at the castle, or you're having a conversation with them in your living room, or you're having a coffee. Do it with sincerity and love. And we're only on this planet for a finite amount of time, and you never know when it's going to be your time. So why not make the most of it?
Love it. Sounds great. Michael, thanks very much.
Hey, thank you.
Appreciate your time. Good luck with this. And know that people will continue to be coming into the show, and go to 57ghosts.com to more information as to the dates and times and when it's going to be available and everything. So thanks this is great. And I always like talking to other people who do seances and kind of what your thoughts are. So this has been great. It's Over the Magic Word Podcast. That was Michael Rangel. This is Scotty out. Thank you very much, Michael, for being my guest, and thank you also for bringing in the guests of ghosts into your seance. I hope that some people will come and join you from the real world so you can share the spiritual world at the next seance. So thanks for joining us, and for those people who are interested, I think you should certainly go and check this out, 57 Ghosts there on the Queen Mary. And if you're wanting to know a little bit more about the Queen Mary, I recently had discovered a 2023 horror movie that's called The Haunting of the Queen Mary, and it's currently playing on Hulu. And if you have attended the Magic Collectors Expo earlier this year, you're going to recognize the place, because the main room where we had a lot of our activities was also one of the main focus areas for this movie, or at least a lot of scenes were shot there. And then we can also see what the rooms look like. It was pretty cool. And it really comes in at like about 2 hours, which I think is a little bit long, really, to tell the tale of ghosts with such gruesome and graphic depictions of death. But it goes back and forth from the 1930s to the present day, and a little bit too disjointed, really, for my taste. But as horror movies go, it was not bad at all. And if you like horror, you might like this. And if you want to see also what the Queen Mary looks like, it's worth viewing. Well, enough of that little promo for the movie. Again, it's called The Haunting of the Queen Mary. And I, again, want to thank Michael. Thank you for being my guest this week. Good luck here into the Halloween season. And if you are not anywhere near there, but you do find that there is a seance somewhere near where you are, it's kind of fun to go and check it out and to support your local mediums at large, if you will. So until next week, stay well, get books, and remember to do everything you do with love and sincerity. This is Scotty out.